Bill.
Thank you.
This is your second time?
It is.
That's
Yes.
very good. Okay, we'll delve into it, sort of revenues and then, expenses is sort of the general approach we take, but if you wanna kick us off with some big picture thoughts and overall guiding
Sure.
intentions for this year.
So for the 2020 budget, I think we was able to maintain pretty much the current expenditures while increasing some of the revenue. And also looking to add the youth bureau as a component of the department within the budget, which is I think will be a big impact upon programming for disconnected youth in the community. I think we were able to get some of the budget lines last year where they needed to be, and with my second go around in the budget this year, even fine tune that a little bit even better with some of the lines, and with the help of finance, try to move some things into some different lines that made sense, so it's easier to track. So I think for 2020 we're in pretty good shape.
Great. Okay, and for doing this work, I am at least shuffling things in the book here, but maybe Quentin, you had a question or?
Yeah, so what is the,
Sorry, so we're doing the revenue part, one on one, we're not going page by page, we jumping? I'm just asking.
I mean, we usually do, but if you have a question you want to
Yeah.
start, then that's fine.
so this, the senior
Rec leader?
rec leader,
Right.
what exactly is it?
So civil service has different promotional recreational titles, from rec leader, senior rec leader, rec supervisor, assistant superintendent, superintendent.
Okay.
So senior rec leader is just one of those civil service titles. With each one of those titles, you have more responsibilities and levels of supervision. So rec leader is kind of like your entry level type of position with the promotional civil service title. So senior rec leader is somebody that's got more experience. They take a test, promotional test. They're hired off a list. Typically, somebody before they become a rec supervisor has to have a number of years as a rec leader or senior rec leader before you can be getting some.
So what are their duties?
Programming, developing programmings, working with independent contractors, developing contracts, supervising programs, supervising staff. They would take the responsibility of the person in charge if it's on off hours. So they'll be charging the building, charging the staff that's going on, any programs that are going on during that time.
Is there a degree requirement for this?
There is.
Do they have to have an MSW?
No, you have to meet the qualifications set by civil service in Westchester County. So it's a bachelor's degree. I'm not exactly sure what the requirements are, but usually it's a bachelor's degree and a minimum number of years of experience.
Okay. I want to come back to this when we start talking about the youth bureau, because if there was a way, see, as long as you have a title, you have to go by civil service requirements. But based on the dollar amount, and some of us have different viewpoints, whether it be TTAS or the youth bureau, whatever the case may be, but if there's a way where this particular person or this position or this dollar amount could have some involvement within the youth bureau and the senior program, that would alleviate some of my concerns with respects to how much is actually being dedicated to the youth bureau.
What page are you on?
So, in general, I know that,
He's
Yeah,
in
it's a
the
broader-
salary
yeah.
schedule.
But senior rec leader isn't specific to senior, it's a title in terms of, like,
As opposed to
senior as
junior
opposed to
rec.
junior.
okay.
Like
So it has nothing
It
to
has
do
nothing to
with,
do with like,
no, working with
okay.
seniors, no.
Yeah.
Not who they provide
It's
services
just
to,
like
it's their status.
a
their-
more experienced rec leader,
got you.
And there is a portion
right. So that, I think we already addressed that,
Okay,
yeah.
but they get paid
to the youth.
7 to 9 at the end. It's still salary.
Yeah, the salary is the salary,
Okay.
yes.
Okay.
But I think that we did apportion a part of that, one of those salaries for that title to the youth bureau, that's how we,
75% of it,
yeah.
Oh, okay.
yes.
Yeah.
It's for the youth bureau.
Your wish has already
We're way ahead of
happened.
you.
Oh,
Wow.
okay.
Yes.
Bring him on
Yeah.
one.
So
Oh.
we'll see that on page 16 of 22 of
Okay.
the expenses, but yes.
So
So the,
so my only thing is that if you hire someone that doesn't, see, if you have someone with an MSW, you can therefore have, like, if someone is doing like internships or whatever the case may be, where people do college credit, my understanding is that if the person has an MSW, they can supervise people who are looking to get those kind of credits, which could be helpful depending on the kind of program that you're doing. But if it's just a bachelor's, then we may limit ourselves, so that's all.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think we have to work out with civil service exactly what we have to do with that position as far as the title.
And again, just as a reminder to the public that these are requests, not approval, because I get to see an actual youth bureau explanation. And so my concern would be, if we don't get this off the ground this year, and you hire somebody, then how do we get the money back? Because they're not doing youth bureau stuff, but they're allocated to do youth bureau stuff. But they're not doing it if we don't have it set up by next year. Or if we have it set up in the last 2 months of next year, then we're paying based on the fact that we thought they were gonna be allocated 75%, something they're not actually being allocated to. So it's like, you know, this is, I'm reminding the public, not you, Bill, that these are requests, not approvals for everything, because we need to see the whole picture, obviously.
I think the youth bureau is gonna be a big portion of our conversation. Why don't we, with that in mind, take a look at the revenues, identify what are the big changes, and then you can help us understand why. And then, as we look at the intended expenses for the year, I think we're gonna end up having a conversation about youth bureau, because that's the biggest change that we're anticipating, and we don't really have a clear plan of exactly how it's happening, so you will understand how you're preparing for the potential of that. So, revenue.
So we have page 1 of 2.
Yes. Tennis fees are the big one that's changed, but I know there's been a lot of thought put into some of these.
Right, so tennis fees, percentage-wise, it's a big change, dollar amount, it's not a huge amount. It's just primarily based upon the number of permits that we sell. Tennis is, actually, ironically, we met with the Austin Community Tennis this morning to talk about ways. One of the things that they have done, or not have done, is that they really kind of went away from their youth program over the years.
Right.
So, in my mind, there's not a feeder program into the tennis, so we're coming up with ways to start more youth tennis programs, trying to work with them. They do some fundraising and trying to get them maybe to use some of their money to pay for instructors to offer free tennis, kind of like, come try tennis for the day type of thing, have an event over at the tennis courts to get the tennis courts more utilized. So, for projecting for 2020, we're going basically on the past numbers of the past 2 years of the revenue for that.
This is not a big number, but I'm not quite sure who manages all this. So you go to the tennis courts and you play. I don't know if you have a permit or not.
Well, you're supposed to have a permit.
No, I know what you're supposed to
Yeah.
have, I get that, but
Yeah.
who, like,
So the people that are buying the permits are the people that are in the leagues that Austin Community Tennis coordinates. They're the ones that are primarily buying buying those permits. There may be others that are not and using the courts.
Right.
There's probably people that are getting onto the court somehow if they're open who don't have
They
permits.
explained that the courts were locked.
How's that?
doesn't matter. Explain how do you unlock?
How do you get in?
So when you get a
If you have a
permit, you
permit.
get the lots out of combo.
And you just give it to all your friends
We
and
give it to
neighbors?
the,
Okay.
we give it to the people that have the permit.
So there are a lot of people using that don't live in Austin and aren't. They're like people my age who go there, they
We
don't
don't
buy the
have-
permits,
Yeah,
and there's no way to manage that.
We don't have any
And we
idea.
still don't have a way to manage it.
right, we don't have
It's
any
a trust
idea who's
system.
using it.
So how do we fix it?
Unless you have an
Maybe
attendant,
walk with a card.
yeah, an attendant or a card or something there where,
So there's ways to fix it.
There's not that many entrances that we need.
No, it's just one.
There's
Yeah.
four.
How is the condition of the court?
the courts are in excellent condition. In fact, the Austin Community Tennis people today said that that's why people like to come to it. That they don't necessarily need to come to our courts for these leagues, but people enjoy being outside. A lot of the clubs have indoor courts, but they enjoy being using the clay courts, because there's not a lot
Yeah.
of good clay courts around in the surrounding communities, and ours are in really good shape.
And just recently, I think it was just this last season for the first time, the parks crew started doing a seasonal
Right,
maintenance
so
of it.
historically, we've always contracted out. This year, because of the rainy weather, we kept getting pushback from our contractor about when they were gonna be able to come in and do the courts. So we went ahead and decided to do it ourselves. And it was a learning experience, but they came out excellent. The Parks Department just recently had a training for them, where we had a contractor come in and they did a 3-hour training with all of our parks guys on how to maintain the courts going forward. So that was really good, because there were lots of things that we were doing wrong and lots of things that we didn't know we should be doing. So now we have that knowledge going forward, so that should even make our courts in better condition going forward.
So in the interest of fairness for the people who are paying $75 a year?
Yes, 75.
Which is certainly a reasonable amount to have
Okay.
such a good quality
Thank you so
building
much.
and paid to play courts. Awesome. In fairness to the people who are following the rules and paying for that access, I've also heard from people that show up and think they can use it and they're surprised that they can, and they don't understand why they can't. So what kind of signage do we have at the courts that explain that the courts, the public courts, any Ossining resident is invited to become a user? If you're interested in becoming a user, contact this number at the Ossining
Yeah.
Recreation Department, and you will be provided with the passcode so that you can legally have access to this,
Right,
like
so-
something to that effect.
Yeah, there's nothing at the court. It's on, we have a tennis online. I think it's something where in the past, the tennis has just always been, was the Ossining Community Tennis managed what was going on there. And basically, after the meeting this morning, I found is that's really the only usage, is this Ossining Community Tennis with the tennis leagues, and we need to change that. And, you know, the thought might even be if we're only taking in $2,700, maybe we just make the courts available to everyone. It's something to consider. There's not a permit fee, or there's a usage fee or something. So, I mean, I think there's ideas that we need to discuss, because the permit fee is, could be prohibitive for some people for participating. But we need to work on it.
I think there's been a changeover in who manages this. So when it was open to everybody, it was damaged by bicycles,
Yeah.
tricycles, and everything else. Not what it was designed to do. Tennis, unlike some other sports, you just can't have stuff like that and people rollerblading on the courts and all that. But there needs to be signage, because not to explain to people who come there what the deal is, and frankly, most tennis courts everywhere. So I'm like a tennis family, this is something, and we used to play in that league, both my kids and myself. So it is not true that they're the only ones that use it. Absolutely other people use it, but I think people, to Victoria's point, also walk on there. Not, they're thinking like, you know, just the way I use the play set, I should be able to use this. I think signage is crucial. I think an ability to get somewhere, to a person, and the times people are available, so, you know, people understand that. You need to look at the fee. $70 for tennis is like a bargain of the century to play on. They're expensive to maintain. They have lights, which is unusual, actually. But residents should absolutely have access and figure out, you know, the other parts of it. Like all of our parks and all of our systems, you know, the way you control things is not by paying someone to go full-time and look at everybody's ID. It's that once in a while, during the busy time, you send somebody down, because the sign should say, you will be asked for ID or for you, whatever. We're allowed to ask you at any time. And you should, you know, once in a while, do a little spot check. And then the word will get out and people will pay what they're supposed to. And there are a lot of people from Radcliffe that play there, because they actually live closer. They come down
actually have
and
a
they can
whole
afford
thing.
the $75.
It's just called Barclay. So I have a whole thing on Barclay.
Well, tell us, what
Well,
do they say,
they,
what's their
yeah.
deal?
So, mine was more about, so I actually ran into some members on and off of the Barclay Village Board, and the thing that I've expressed to them, which has been expressed in the past, is this is solely my opinion. This is not a reflection on the rec department or Superintendent Garrison or the board, but I do feel that their non-resident fees for us or non-residents are purposely higher as a deterrent for our residents not to actually use their facilities. So a perfect example, which is why I'm proposing something new. So right now, if I want to use our outdoor pool,
They meaning Briarcliff?
yes,
Okay.
Briarcliff Outdoor Pool, they do not offer a non-resident individual fee.
Right.
You're mandated to get a non-resident family fee of $1,025 per
Right.
year. Whereas here, they pay $20 for their ID for the year, and then if they want open swim, they pay $400. So,
And what do residents pay for open swim?
They can pay the $10 membership, and it's $20 for adults and $15
yeah.
for open swim.
Okay, I mean, it's what, 20 times more. It starts at a lower price point, but.
So no, that was just an example, it was just an example that, we do have to,
It's the same with, but the tennis also is only.
right, it's just an example, that, but we do have to look across the board as the, our priority is to serve the residents of the town of Austining, those of Austining, but, we do have to be very cognizant of actual abuse that is going on in our facilities. And that does play into our wear and tear. So whether it's to your point, investing in some sort of fob system when you rent it or you get it, or do pop-in checks for.
Well, that's a simple solution.
I mean, our parks are open to everyone, so I'm not saying that I'm trying to have, exclusive parks, but,
But this is tennis court. It's-
Tennis, pools, these are high maintenance,
that's what I'm saying.
and their capacity is not infinite. 4 people can play on a tennis court at a time, period, end of conversation. It's not a park where you could have a whole bunch of people celebrating whatever, enjoying themselves. They have a very finite set, so when our residents aren't able to get on, because other people are using it, it excludes them. A park, you move your picnic 10 feet over, and you could do whatever you want. It's a very different scenario. I was just suggesting that there are easier ways to mandate without making this a mountain out of a molehill. Like, once a month, walk on the tennis court and ask them to show something and ask them to pay if they don't. Bring a little Apple Square and take their credit card. It'll be really easy to do. But your idea is a philosophical one about the use of
Yeah, my only,
facilities and
my only
parks.
ask this year is to, I mainly only focus on our immediate neighbors, just because I know that Village Brothers Manor uses our great facility and programming a lot. So despite me not being able to get a non-resident pool membership, I don't need one, because Austin is very cool. So that was just an example, but, I would love to have a discussion about increasing the non-resident ID fee.
The non-resident ID.
So how much,
Oh.
how many of those do we have here right now? Just an average, you don't have to give me an
Are
exact.
we good?
For non-residents that have the members, it's definitely less than 10%.
That have the membership to the tennis, you mean?
No, I'm just
No,
talking about
Just
the
just
general.
overall
Just
membership.
overall
Oh, memberships,
membership.
That's
oh,
less than 10%.
for rec services,
I mean,
So they're not actually using us.
so there's not a large number of non-residents that are involved.
because town residents are counted as residents.
Correct.
With the current IMA. So unincorporated town and Briarcliff Manor then,
There's part of Briarcliff residents that fall within the resident ring.
Right.
be 91% of Briarcliff? Everybody who's in the
That's
town.
Yeah.
with an IMA, so it's
Yeah.
not,
Yes.
you know.
Yeah,
Well, but you're, maybe should be saying, make a note to look at the IMA for
yeah.
this.
I'm just saying it
Yeah, I
doesn't seem
think that's-
fair, that's all.
Right, that's an IMA
Or
question.
just, so we don't have to, but just, I just want to bring that up.
Mhm.
So we got out the tennis, even though that's a small number, but it's a symptomatic issue for me. The question of, well, but how do we mandate it? Well, let's be a little bit more clever than just saying it's impossible. I know key fobs are really expensive, but sending a person once a month in the summer months is not that big of a deal.
Providing IDs to the people who are buying the membership for tennis, to me is a way to check if they have access.
Right, but
'Cause
then if you live in
buy-
Austining and if you have a license, then that's all you really would need, because you live there and you have to
No,
use
what I'm
your
saying is
tennis
if you
or
pay.
ID, I don't know.
I think, right
I
now.
don't wanna get into
But
the
the thing is,
detail.
right now, I think a lot of it could be accomplished just by providing the information, so when people show up, oh my gosh, we have these gorgeous tennis courts, I would love to be able to play. Oh, there's a way for me to,
Right.
in a very cost-effective manner, be able to do this
By
legitimately.
signage.
Most people don't wanna break the rules, 80% of people don't wanna break the rules, and they might not know what the rules are.
They don't.
So put the information out there, we're not seeing a lot of damage on it. I wouldn't necessarily open it up and leave it open, because right now we're not seeing the damage, but we do wanna encourage participation. One way is to create a sign, another way is for us to do, you do a lot of outreach by email, let's do some more of that with the tennis season when it starts up in April or May. It's a great resource, we wanna use it more, but that's fine, that was the number that we started with, which was like probably the tiniest number in this whole budget, but philosophically, it's got a lot of.
But it affects other
Little
areas
legs,
as
yeah.
well. Go ahead.
So can I ask you on the rental, sure, you have the first line.
Oh.
Oh, skip ahead to line 3.
I was on line 1.
So, I'm still line one, yes. So we, I guess I don't see a history of the rental of properties. So could you explain that, what does that mean?
Was that the one there
First
that we
line.
combined?
Yeah,
Right, so that was, we combined,
yeah, I think you have it, well,
was that with the?
birthday, the birthday
No,
parties.
he's got that separated out.
Yeah, but we had done a journality to fix it. But you do rental of pavilions or
Nope, there's no pavilions in Forest Parks.
No, it was rentals of
Market
ball
Square.
fields.
ball fields?
You have a 2020 recommended budget of
Okay.
5, right? You have 19 actual of 6.245. I think question 1 is why are you planning for less? And question 2 is what is this line?
What
does
is
that
that
represent,
line?
yeah?
Yeah, what is that?
Maybe I have it reversed, excuse
So
me.
it's the same, yes.
Well,
What's the other one?
Well, the actual was, what did you get the
Room rentals?
6245 in 2019, sure, and then, yes, why is it, if we have that?
Ball fields and room rentals.
That's right, well,
Well, ball fields, that's a big part of it, okay.
So this is 2019 was the only year that we started on this?
Well, I don't think so. I
No, I
think it used
think
to
it
go
was-
into
it was-
2410, the general,
Oh, you
revenue
separated
code?
it out?
Yeah,
and then when we separated
So
out,
this is a more accurate way to do the.
right,
That's
Sure,
right.
I think
Right.
that's useful because a lot
Yeah.
of people may see this line and be like, well, how come that never happened in previous years? So that's something we wanna make sure that.
So you just
Right.
allocated it differently.
right.
And then the follow-up question is, why are you reducing your expected budget for next year on this line item?
Because I think we're not sure what it will actually end up being.
Right, but why would we
Yeah.
expect it to be less?
There was something in there that was kind of unexpected. Wasn't there a revenue
Now
that
we
we
have
had?
the pool rental, but I think we cleaned that
We
up.
cleaned that out too.
so it's a conservative estimate, but I think, and my guess is that it will likely increase, much more likely to increase than decrease, but it does fall into what we're currently doing with, establishing fees for room and space rentals of
Right.
recreational property overall.
The number should be increased because numbers are also really managed. And so I think it should be corrected to reflect your statement.
Did we ever, we had
That's
a
fine.
conversation about room fee charges, it was 2 hours for $25, did that ever get decided, it brought up other questions?
No,
but
because
that's
it's,
what-
it's,
okay.
not every room has a fee, and we really, like, rather than attack things piecemeal, we're really unpackaging everything and
Okay.
repackaging it. So that's in the works now. I couldn't imagine that we're gonna recommend lower, because we're gonna add more things and then make the fees commensurate with actual village, time, effort, and usage.
Right.
So while again, I wanna make sure that people understand we're maintaining accessibility, we're just really addressing something that's not been addressed in a long time.
And
So would you be comfortable with, changing the recommended budget to 6,000 instead of 5,000?
I would be comfortable with that, I
Yeah.
think that
Because
that's not a problem.
even if there is some
Yeah, it
anomaly
just
in here,
looks
we're
weird.
anticipating that we're gonna create additional
Right.
fees for usage that, may change people's usage, but probably some people will use it
The
anyway.
other thing is, as we finalize the event, recreational usage plan, we can also look at a budget adjustment. I'd rather do it based off a more sound projection. But, I agree to trustee Levin's point that we should use numbers to manage that reflect our expectations and guide us in that direction.
And, just to start us off correctly, I should have said this earlier, I've been in the community center a lot recently, and people have noticed it's cleaner, people have noticed improvements, people have noticed that room that is being used all the time now for workout with the new floor, the great lighting, and the ventilation.
Lazy workouts with sticks.
Yes, because people are using it, I think it's great. So, just wanted, I know it's a budget meeting, but I do wanna say that when we do spend money, the basketball, the flooring, I heard good stuff about. I do wanna, because, you know, for those that are watching, I do wanna say to you that people are noticing, some of the improvements. I know we have more to go, but they're definitely, it's in the right direction, I think.
I noticed there was a picture of my son from nineteen
Yes.
ninety-eight in the,
He got so
in the prison museum room, in the box.
Sorry.
And there's like, well, it's the museum, not that. But there,
I think you should just grab that and
I
frame it.
know, I
and
gotta
put
get
in
it,
somewhere.
it's,
Right, put it in
I don't know
your
why
office.
it's there, it's a newspaper that news feature.
Just,
Anyway.
just to add to that,
Back to the budget.
I know that it's still ongoing, so I won't spend a lot of time on it, but, just to assure that as you finalize with Bill and staff, the room rates and charges that that you guys also establish, a fee for park rentals for
Yes,
parks that don't have them right now, that
Yes.
way, yeah.
yeah, no, it's all, anything recreation oriented, you know.
And my last point, and this is, I'm not gonna go into it now because I don't think it, but, is, how we, as you finalize, especially events, procedure or policy, what differentiates, let's say, Mayor Garrity and Trustee Herrera or private citizens do a protest, right? And that you get 300 people, and that now requires police services and this and that. What constitutes, the surveys that the municipalities expected to, back to your point earlier about, you know, processions and parades, I just kind of want that, as you internally finalize, there's some stuff that we should charge for, others that we shouldn't, and just add that to the conversation when that time comes.
I think it's a good point, Bill, because you and I have had this discussion also, to do an analysis, I'm not saying right this minute, in the expense of when people use different parts of our community, or what they think, you know, music and microphones, they think like we're supposed to supply that for their events. I'm not sure that there's a policy we should, but I'm not sure there is a policy. So I think that's where your input, and I know that you have the support of the advisory committee on a lot of this charge to set standards and all that, and they're helpful in that. So I think that's what you'll probably be working on, is also part of adjustments for this year.
Absolutely.
And we're still on page.
Is there anything more in the revenue here that we wanna, ask Bill about? Or Bill,
Yes,
you
the
wanna draw our
after-school,
attention?
after-school programs.
After-school programs,
Oh, wow.
so revenue is up there, we have the program full, that's what that's for, so we are, 40 for each of the three age groups, or the three groups, so that's why the revenue is up on that.
So,
What happened to
but
the?
wait, no, the revenue, when I'm looking at here is, the 2019 budget is 155, sure. The actuals up to date, you know, what is the account
It's
for
down.
140?
That's probably through, because we still have community pass,
Well,
which is drawing,
We still have,
From October.
that's probably October, November, December, or something.
Okay, so,
yeah.
so your guess is we're gonna hit the 155.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
No, he's saying they're gonna
Yeah.
exceed it.
Yeah,
Exceeded by how much?
third.
No, because
Quarter.
181 is the 2020 budget.
Right, so what's a quarter of 140?
Because there's a quarter left, man.
This is only 3/4 of the
Okay.
year,
All right, so,
so that's,
so you give it,
It's
let's say,
about
let's say you hit
18,000 a month.
Okay, so let's say you hit 170. So now you're asking 181 for 2020?
He's predicted.
Is that what we predicted?
Right,
And what is,
does that reflect an increase in the cost per child?
$5.
okay. So that's part of the fee.
$5 a day, a month, a
Month.
quarter?
All right, that's,
So that makes sense, but
Sounding
again,
reasonable,
without,
yeah.
without the information.
That's fair.
Right.
No, that's what I'm saying, so that makes
Mhm.
sense.
Okay.
I was gonna ask something else, which I thought when we had our committee meeting that you said that, I may have heard you wrong, and I apologize in advance, day camp fees. I thought day camp did well, and yet the numbers are going down. What's happening there? I'm just concerned.
You mean the recommended is lower than the actual?
Yeah,
revenue
so
from 2019?
we actually are going, raising it from the budgets by $25,000. The actual, we did well this summer because of
Yeah.
enrollment. The camp is always very tricky because, although it's because the dollar amount is so large. So if you're down 10 kids, that's $5,000 or $6,000. So it's tricky to,
Oh,
you know,
I
you're down
understand.
10 or 15 kids, it's gonna have a big impact on your budget. So that's, 275 is an increase of $25,000, but it's also being conservative.
You're being conservative, you're actually splitting the difference, it looks like, between, did you guys, account for the minimum wage increases
Mhm.
for next year when you did all this?
Mhm.
Okay.
Is that what we pay is minimum wage?
Well, there might be
Yeah.
more, but at least that's.
So yeah, so you notice in our expenditures and those lines, that's where our increases are, it's because of the minimum wage.
Yeah.
Is our minimum wage different in Westchester than it is in most of New York State?
Yes.
Yes.
And we're in compliance with that.
Yeah, we're just that, we're, Westchester's the only county that it's not going up as fast as other ones.
But it's high.
It's a dollar,
It's hard-
goes
it's
up a
higher to
dollar
start
a
with,
year.
though.
Yeah, it doesn't go as
Yeah.
fast,
So
but it's
it'll be
already high.
13 in 2020,
Right.
And we're just keeping them.
yes.
Okay.
We're not having trouble finding staff.
No,
That's not how the market works.
So,
It doesn't work that way.
so birthday parties in Westchester County is a huge business, and it is on an incline almost everywhere it's offered. And yet we're down. Is there a reason for that? Is it that we just don't have the space, or what's the deal there? It's an 8% a year growth in Westchester County, but we're seeing a decrease.
so again, that was
So
when
we're
we,
cheap.
I think what we did was the rental property and the pool parties, for some reason the rentals were going into the pool party line last year, is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah, so if you take a look at that, we had, only 5,000 budgeted for pool parties and the rentals. And this year, we are increasing that to 10 between the two, we just split the two
But
lines.
it's an allocation.
So it is an increase, double that.
You
So that's-
budgeted, it's a revenue, yeah.
So then
So
then
those
our
two are
whole
combined,
discussion
yes.
about we shouldn't be stuck at the rental of
Yeah.
property.
Yeah.
Really, if you're adding 1,000 to that, you're really just taking away from the pool party
Yes.
line. Cause you still want 10 grand between the two lines, so whatever makes sense then, okay.
So, but to your point about the pool parties,
No, birthday parties.
birthday parties and the pool parties, because that's what they kind of go, they do the birthday party and the pool party together. We need to market that more. We need
Oh,
to package that up like any other thing, and maybe, you know, we can, and start taking reservations on it and push it out there and let people know
You
about
have
it.
a website now that you didn't
Yeah.
have a year or a year and a half ago that I think you could add that as a
That's
click.
that's
And it's an easy pay by credit card
Yeah.
and all that other stuff. It's a huge growing business. It's space.
You gonna do a party?
I did both my daughters, I did both my daughters'
Yeah, they both had a
parties.
birthday party, it was a shark birthday party. No sharks, just on the paper.
And I think if we're going towards, if we're gonna go into a 7-day week, your birthday party should actually also increase because you're adding a
Oh, yeah.
7th day. I don't know how you guys calculate it for the 7th day piece, or maybe it's too soon to calculate and it's not 100% done deal.
Yeah.
We really didn't
So-
accommodate 7 days into, projections for
We'll have to
programs
adjust.
because we're gonna have to adjust. But-
Yeah, we don't know yet if it's 100% in the bag, we think it is.
Well,
It
that's in the bag, but in terms of, we don't have
Programming,
the
and
programming
certain stuff.
set and everything
Yeah.
else, so I think that, while we can anticipate that, I think that maybe in March we can come back and look at this and say, make adjustments, but I don't wanna make it too soon and then not have a realistic sense of what we're doing, we don't have a baseline.
I'm okay with adjustments, but I'm simply asking
Yeah,
the questions. And if
Yeah.
you're bringing people on, you also have to tell the taxpayers how you pay for people.
right,
And there are many ways to pay. It could also be we're open more days, but we also expect a little bit more revenue, may not be exactly proportional, but it's something.
Oh,
It's
yeah,
great
yeah,
for
yeah.
birthday parties, because that seventh day is actually,
It would be a very good birthday party day.
yes, it's a big one, yeah.
Why is Spartans going down?
It's, it will not, compared to 2018, it's not gonna be down too much. I think when we finish this year, we'll be close, we'll be over at, we'll be close to 70. But again, it's just the number of kids that are participating. It's tougher to get kids to sign up. But we're running into that a lot with kids participating in different programs. Our rec basketball right now has got low registration numbers, and it starts, within the next 2 weeks.
Some of us will be there to register, I'm glad there's
There are still spots. So that's something we're struggling with. So again, being conservative on the revenue side of it, and still pushing forward and trying to push registration, try to come up with ideas to get kids involved. But it's a trend, I think, that we have to look at about registering our kids in programs, and we come up with ways where parents can pay on a monthly basis to make it easier, so they're not pulling down the big, writing a big check at the beginning of the season. We changed it so that all the parents weren't paying for the meets, so they're only paying for the meets that their children are going to. So trying to help out in those ways as well.
I see that you have a significant increase anticipated in the youth swim classes and decrease in the adult swim classes. You're just budgeting to reflect the reality?
Yeah, so the swim classes, we changed that format. I think I've spoke to the board about that before, where we took that idea, instead of running a 10-week swim class, running 2 6-week swim classes. So the initial layout for a parent is less, and typically what we're finding is that they're signing up for both anyway, so instead of getting 10 weeks worth of revenue, we're getting now 12 weeks worth of revenue. The classes have been running well. We've added more classes. We adopted a policy where if there's anybody on the wait list, that the aquatic staff is reaching out to find more instructors so we can get those people off the wait list and into classes. So when there's one person in there, we're figuring out a way to get them in that class so they're not left out there. So with that type of approach, we've been able to increase the revenue. And we will, if the Sunday becomes an option, right now the pool is open on Sunday just for open swim, but if we open it for the full day, then we would do more swim lessons on Sunday as well.
Speaking of wait list, my understanding that I haven't really asked the past 2 years, we currently have a wait list for our after-school program, right?
There's a few, yeah.
Okay. Would we, if that were to increase, I'm assuming around like the beginning of school again, would we also do outreach to recruit more staff?
For the after school, it's more about capacity of the building.
Building, okay.
Yeah, and in the space that they're in. So right now, we've got 40 kids in each of those spaces.
Yeah.
So it's not more about the staff. We could get more staff.
Yeah, no, I was asking because, that's, the reason, maybe besides the programming being done well and, parents being happy and students doing well in that program, it's a vital program because of its affordability.
Yes.
And that does matter because, and that's why we're always at capacity
Yeah.
in the after-school program. But, we enable, close to 80 families to have care after school because of that program.
Mhm.
So it's just really important to me, so.
And one thought too is if a youth bureau does come about, is an idea of moving the after-school program into the schools.
Yeah.
And it would still be a rec program, rec would still run that. That may give us more capacity to accept more kids. Kids are there, we don't have to transport the kids. And then it opens up the facility for the rec at the community center for youth bureau programs for more middle school and high school age kids.
Awesome, love
Right.
it. Okay. I mean, I don't know how much more detail we wanna go into. I mean, the art center is kind of a tricky one. Do you wanna tell us anything about the Clay Art Center?
The art center,
Art Center?
the model that we put together to cover the expenses, as of 2 years ago, was losing money, so the model we have is working. The enrollment has gone up, the programs have more people in them, so, as our revenue goes up, our expenses go up because we have to pay the instructors, because they're running more and more classes. And they get a cut of the revenue as the number of people in there, so it's working fine right now. And,
As,
When does the rec IMA expire? I know you're doing a full review of all the
Isn't it
IMAs.
like an annual,
It's,
I think so, yeah.
you know?
We signed a new one in 2015, I believe.
I think it's, I'm picturing the list in my head, but I can't remember what the date is, because some of them were sort of just,
I just know the Cedar Lane Art Center, kind of came on the scene after the rec, the rec IMA was signed, and so it's something that I know we're gonna have to review, and so I'm glad it's going in a new direction.
And I think that in terms of, the town has some ideas for things they might wanna do with it too. It is a little bit different than our other programming. So it's important to understand, a Clay Arts Center is an entity unto itself, and it attracts a much wider range of participants that, that live in the town and even in other communities than any of our other rec programs, which are really principally for the local community. So it's a bit of a different model, and I think that, Bill's done an excellent job of getting it to be revenue positive. The goals and objectives of the center itself are different than, again, our other programming. So I think that we do have to talk to the town and see how we can accommodate that. If there's a need to market it and expand it that goes beyond the village of Ossining, there needs to be an understanding of what that looks like for us, because that's not typically how we're doing our program. So it's probably conversations that's worth having in terms of what's the best way to position that program and where it fits in town village recreation. So.
that's actually a perfect segue to the lead. Last question that I had was, what is your guesstimate as far as village resident usage of the Art Center, A? And my intention for asking that question to you is because I've always had concerns of the accessibility and the cost of those programs, given who lives in the village, that's all.
Mhm. So with the art program, we looked at it and it was about, close to 40% were non-residents using the clay program.
Non-Boston or non-village?
Non-Austin. We
Village
didn't
and
break
town.
it down as far as
Okay.
village or town.
Okay.
For the youth programs, the youth art programs, it was about, there was more. I think there was only maybe 20% that was non-resident. So,
20% that was non-resident, or 20% that was
no,
resident?
the youth programs had more village residents.
More village
Yeah.
residents, okay.
Yeah, they were, the adult clay programs were,
We're drawing from a broader set.
yeah,
Sure.
with the youth programs. But you are correct, comparably to the price of our typical rec programs, the art programs are substantially more.
But they always are, aren't they? Our program's always more expensive.
It's also a function of, you can't walk to that.
Yeah, so there's a lot of
It's a very
challenges.
different population it's gonna draw.
Right.
Yeah, the location of it, and then also I do think that the cost of materials, even for art lessons, is gonna be higher with a Clay Art Center than it is gonna be
Right.
with a drawing class, so.
So there is a finite number of people, of kids that are gonna go to those youth art programs within the village and the town. You can, maybe we're at, I don't know. Maybe we can grow the art center more if we expand out to other communities and try and get them in, I don't know. And that may be something the town's interested in, but I think, the challenge of having village residents get out there, the cost.
And that really speaks to how we're running all our programs now. We don't have a separate model in terms of how we advertise, how we market, how we promote our programs that's specific to the Clay Art Center. It's marketed the same way we're doing all our other programs. It is a different model, it's a different, there's a lot of differences. So that's really the conversation that we have to have in the town going forward. Because to grow the Clay Art Center probably is more of a broader reach than growing some of the programs that we run in the community center.
And just last point, with that said though, and before the Art Center existed, not all of the programming that is offered there currently, but we did have a good amount of the programming offered at the Rec Center.
Yeah, so we talked about that because, having some art programs at the Art Center. So we wanna do that and make some programs accessible there. There's no reason why we can't do that. And make them at a lower, cost. So we're looking into that, how to provide some quality type of programs, but at a lower cost.
Great, thank you.
Weed and grass control. The only thing that comes up periodically is people, we'll see those signs that are out there, the weed and grass control, it's like, are we using Roundup? Or what, when we say we're not, just do like scary signs, can you tell us what the?
So, for 2019, we did not use an outside contractor, we did it all in-house, and we used an organic, weed control.
How'd it go?
It's difficult, you have to be on top of it more, so, Roundup, you go and you hit it, it's done. With the organic, you have to go back and keep hitting it. So we're learning as we go. It's not- Yeah, exactly. So that's our goal, that's our plan moving forward, is to not go back to we were using an outside contractor to do Roundup. So any little flags that were up were not us. I don't know, we're from Rec and Parks this year.
I wouldn't necessarily use
Yeah.
this here, it's just a perennial concern, and
Mhm.
it's nice that.
You're gonna have to learn to embrace different kinds of native plants
Make them look good.
and
There's some
pollinators.
strange vinegar smells.
Well,
Would that be no longer than 10 inches high?
Pardon me?
No higher than 10 inches?
Well, certainly on
Just, you know,
village property,
Yeah.
we're trying to keep things neat.
It's usually the cracks on the sides of the sidewalk we're talking about, not
Yes.
people's butterfly gardens.
Thanks for bringing
Yeah,
that
we're
up.
not making a judgment on butterfly gardens and cracks on sidewalks, we're just gonna try to keep people from tripping.
The hanging, very popular tree baskets that we had, I know that number really hasn't changed. They're admired, they look great, I know how it works, but my question is, as you know,
Can we
I had,
send them further?
I had the opportunity, which that's actually part of it, but I had the opportunity to be part of the tree well project that was led by Trustee Levin and the Downtown Economic Development Fund Council,
DDFC.
DDFC, excuse me. And I wanna know, for whatever reason, if we're not successful in obtaining the sponsorships that pay for the plantings and maintenance in those wells, do we account for paying for it ourselves? I know that this year, which I was very proud to see, the department added months. I wasn't sure if that came off of the money that were obtained from the limited amount of sponsorship that came in this year, or if that was just included in your overall budget for the fall.
It was included in the overall
Okay.
budget. So with the tree wells, I was kind of tossed into that.
Okay.
And we put that out as an opportunity, and we did receive maybe 10
It looked great.
to 14 people that did renew there, because it was 2 years was up. So we had 10 or 14 people that did it.
Okay.
So I think for 2020, we gotta figure out, I don't think we included that in any revenue going forward, but we have to figure out how that's gonna be done. I know it was done, in the past, I was told after the fact, there was a separate line for where that revenue went into.
Yeah.
So that has to be figured out, but.
Okay.
Right, and then,
Okay,
the
so I'm
issue
just
of
gonna let you
extending
know
it
that
too.
we
Yeah.
should be marketing that more, excuse me for interrupting. So I have a tree well, nobody called me, and nobody sent me
Yeah.
an email, and nobody told me.
You know what,
I forgot, I just said to Victoria, I probably need to write a check for my tree well, but
Yeah, so our signs are gone, right?
we took the signs out
I was just
and
looking
and
for it
hope that
yesterday.
people would realize their sign was gonna call,
Yeah.
because we
I
didn't
just
have,
noticed
You didn't pay, so.
we didn't have a database of who, we couldn't find a database of who purchased it.
There was no records?
Says it.
There was no records, no applications that
There were-
filled out?
No, all I had was names. So
In our-
now,
I have
Get
pictures.
this.
so, I mean, we could certainly have said, oh,
But
this,
yes.
this business will walk into
well,
the
you could have
business and do
said
this.
Rika and Mark Reisman, you probably would know where to find
Right,
us. Okay.
but it comes into the soliciting,
here.
are we soliciting for the donorship and crossing that line? So what we have now is a system where we have that going forward, where when your term expires, then we can send you an email and say, hey, would you like to renew?
So right now, if I go into so on the website, is there a portion or somewhere in the portal that I can do that online and I don't have to go through?
Yeah, we had it up, it's down now, because, I mean, for the spring, if we want to put it back up, or.
It was up though, yeah, I saw
But I
it.
think it should be all year round.
Well, but the
If
thing is,
something is available.
they wanna order the signs,
Yeah, but
like
if it's
not one.
available-
It goes on an annual
Yeah.
2-year basis, right? So you
Yeah.
don't want it up all the time, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
But it should be, if it's, two of them are empty,
Yeah.
I want to advertise that, there are two of them.
Yeah,
He wants to-
we're
Okay,
lying.
okay.
Yeah.
My final ask is, I know that and Paul explained it last year to us, the streetscape, and when the public hears me say that, I mean the brick print, the printed brick on the side of our stands, that's on the side of our sidewalks going through downtown and kind of going through Croton Avenue, and then the decorative lamps where we hang those baskets. As you know, we've been reached out to by the chamber and a lot of other business owners that happen to be from Croton Avenue to Roosevelt Square. Is there a way that's doable and realistic for us to, whether it's through the barrels we used to have or through, is there a way for us to continue the beautification in the areas by Roosevelt Square that don't have it? Whether it's, whether it's allocating, you know what, Omar, it's realistic for us to only, you know, for this year, as the village continues to work with the chamber and businesses, the only enhancement, as a act of faith, we're gonna be installing 15, I'm making this up, 15 barrels by Camp Woods Business District, by Roosevelt Square. You know, they have felt a little left out, so I'm just trying to find a tangible way for us to have something in this budget that we could say we would have start to.
How far up Croton Avenue do the decorative streetlights go?
Washington Square.
They go all the way up to Washington Square?
No.
So,
They
so
don't.
I don't think that,
Up to Roosevelt Square?
yeah, I don't think that.
Oh, to
they-
Washington Square, oh yeah, Washington Square is right,
Washington
Washington,
Square.
it's at the one
Farther
thirty-four.
No,
north.
it's farther, it's past the library.
Yeah,
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 to Washington
he's
Square.
saying the intersection with 134.
Intersection.
Well, that's what that's called?
Oh, yeah, because that's a Washington school.
Yeah,
Oh, Washington Square, oh, right.
Like, I'm
Sorry.
not proposing
So,
capital
but
project or
between
anything, but-
Washington Square and Roosevelt Square, is there an alternative beautification that we can put in the budget?
I think there probably is.
But we do the baskets up there.
No.
All the
No,
way, all the way up to
on all the
Washington
street-
Square.
On all the
The
street
decorative
lights.
streetlights, but then when this decorative streetlights
But when they
end,
end,
basically it's
extending
from,
it up.
So you can't do the baskets on the poles.
right, we can't do that,
But
we
it's
can't do
So
the
we could
hanging
But there's
baskets.
other things if we
Yeah,
wanna
we
look at that,
could,
we
we
can
could
look at
definitely look,
that.
and, you know,
Barrels and,
Other alternatives.
yeah,
Yeah.
so I mean,
And we
something
wanna,
that would look.
I will say that first block, that just past the 134 intersection where you have C-Town and you have all the buildings across the street, maybe coordinating with the, collective wisdom of the sanitation team,
Mhm.
because
Right.
trash gets put out, yeah, it's narrow sidewalks and the
Yeah.
businesses put their
Right,
trash on the
right,
sidewalk, so we don't wanna just put
And
out
there's
something that's gonna have
residences,
trash
too.
thrown on it twice a week, every week, so. But I'm sure there are some good places to do it, so we'll do it in all the places where they'll be appreciated.
and we are
And not in
looking
the way.
into the holiday decorations,
Yeah.
extending them. Bill was,
Right.
you're looking into we have a issue with electricity, but we thought we might be able to
Solar
solve it,
Right,
We're gonna have a look at some solar options for
Mm,
lights.
it's not gonna work, it was looked at when we did the project, you can ask Paul. I mean, there's solar needs a certain angle and certain
Mhm.
sun and maintenance. And we looked at this when we did the
Well,
project
well,
downtown.
That's solely if they're looking at lights, they may look at some other.
Garlands
He
or
had a
something.
whole thing about, right, you should talk to Paul because they're.
But there's things that we're looking for in the short term that wouldn't require electricity. And I spoke to, Gail Marchik about this because it came up the other day. The chamber's very interested in making sure that the great job that we've done on Main Street through beautification and the, Little Big, campaign, that we extend that up. And I think that makes, perfect sense, and it's certainly something we're open to doing. So there's a couple logistical issues. We will try to do what we can in the short term, recognizing the holidays are right around the corner. But definitely as we go forward, looking to see what we can do to increase the electrical capacity and other things is, you know, something that we think is very valuable to do.
Okay, so I would ask, and you and I have had this conversation for the holiday season, I'm a little late, but I would like to really push hard on beautifying, because while we've improved the downtown, that area somehow looked better a number of years ago than it does today, and no blame on anybody, it just seems to be the case. There's so many grants for downtown, main streets, blah, 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 there doesn't seem to be anything available.
There's
There's
no
no like
upcoming
the rest
grant.
of whatever.
Yeah.
And also, I get emails directly from some of the businesses, so while I appreciate that the chamber is involved, I really, similar to not being notified about the plaques that ended, we need to do a better job in marketing and outreach for basic stuff. So this should be a letter to every business in that, I don't know the word, corridor, like Seatown, Walgreens, and by the way, they might wanna participate, I don't know. But you should be going to an organization to reach people who are here, you should be doing both, right? It should be both entities.
Yeah.
So letters should go to those folks, and they should know that you're working, and even if you can't do it because there's no electrical, whatever, totally legitimate concern, you and I talked about this but they should know that they've been heard, because I know, I'm sure they've sent it to the whole BOT, not just me, that they'd like to have, more beautification, up there, and let's see if we could do something. I appreciate all the
I
work.
think we're all on the same page there.
Yeah, nobody's complaining, I just think the communication could be moved up a notch.
I'm a little concerned about where we are in our timeline for the day,
Yeah.
because, we started lunch late, we got back from lunch not an hour late, but late, and we've already skipped legal, which we were gonna do after rec, and we are now, at what should be the end of the building department time, so we're, like an hour and a half behind, we haven't even talked about the youth bureau yet, so, what is the best course going forward? I know that we can make up some time with planning and finance, I'm just thinking of, Joe Bastelli's time, and Stuart is actually getting work done in his office, I don't know if he has other, obligations that are gonna draw him away later on in the afternoon. What do you recommend, Karen?
So, we can, perhaps schedule time to speak about, I think the youth bureau is probably, another half-hour discussion. So I think that maybe we have several other days scheduled, and then a makeup day if we need it, when we can use part, or not, none, or all of that day if we need it. So I do think we have time, if Bill does not mind, to come back specifically to review your youth bureau, and keep that as a separate conversation for now.
So for Rika, you
That to me is a work session item. I don't think it should be part of this budget.
But it's
Or
both.
it can be
Yes.
both.
It's
It can
both,
be
because,
both.
because it's
Yeah.
in the budget, we wanna
It's in the
understand how it's
So
allocated in the
what
budget.
can we do on next week then?
Before we answer
Next
that,
Wednesday.
who is working on the actual, back to trustees and getting there, Rika's point, who's working on the PowerPoint or presentation that we're actually getting in hand describing the program, whether
So
it's a
I think-
proposal
I
or
think-
not?
The youth bureau, look, we're not, you know, we've allocated money in the budget. The discussion of how we implement the youth bureau is a much bigger, discussion. It involves, stakeholder engagement and everything, so
So we're not getting a proposal.
there's no proposal on how we're going to implement the youth bureau in this short time frame.
Okay.
What we did was we allocated the funding based on our conversations with the county thus far, so that we have a placeholder for that, so that we know we can do it, but the options for doing it, range.
So there's no plan yet.
We just couldn't do it in this time frame.
Okay.
That's not, realistic based on what we have to do for Austin. We started the process, but I don't wanna go out with a proposal without really doing, looping back with all the organizations who are involved in the initial conversations. So that's a process.
So then when we do have, so if we were to have the discussion today, what would the discussion be? If we're not planning for it yet?
Yeah,
How much money is put aside into these, and where the recommendations are coming from?
Well,
Like you said, it's
we
not
think that
all
accomplished
6,000.
already, we accomplished that it came from our stakeholders in the county, and,
It can't really count.
and then we established that we're only gonna be investing in 2 employees, and then that's that, right?
Well, no, but also, I know, Bill, you've been doing a lot of conversations with other youth bureaus
Yeah.
about how to lay this out. So I guess, and this is to to Trustee Levin's point, do you want to be made aware of some type of presentation of like what other youth bureaus do and sort of what the proposal is? Because we're talking about dollars and cents here. And I know he's had conversations with a couple of youth bureaus throughout Westchester County, so, you know, I mean, for me, my only question was the director gonna be the senior rep? Or that the executive director is separate and then,
Well, you also brought up the notion of the programming dollars, and that should be included in addition to the two funded positions.
so for, yes, I mean, there is some notes as far as beams and other things that have been requested for program dollars, but my primary concern was for what the actual positions are. Because now that I know that there's an executive director and there's that senior rep person, or what that title is, you know, that to me makes a fuller program than when we spoke initially and I said, you know, how much of the salary, because now I know that's being shared among, you know, the rec and.
Yeah, so I'm sorry I didn't make that clear, but yeah, that's, so the amount that we budgeted for salaries is a conservative estimate based on, meaning that it will cover what we anticipate, even based on looking what programs we've looked at so far. So the placeholder for staffing is well in the range of what we would
Right,
need to
so
launch the program.
There's
I don't need anything, so Omar is right, if you took some other recommendations, I don't need to know the details, because you're putting a placeholder. The problem with all these placeholders is 6 months into the year, I get told that, like, well, you budgeted for it, therefore, no. They're placeholders, and I'm gonna say that there's no support, at least for my vote, until I see something that actually delineates what it looks like, which you just said is going to be done. Therefore, Omar is correct. If this is about putting a budget, you took whatever people told you and all the stakeholders, I'm sure some of those meetings will have public hearing, I mean, like, it's a whole new thing. It doesn't just get rolled out, it has to have input beyond just organizations. People that live here actually also have to have input, and you'll do a whole, I'm sure there'll be a whole thing going on. I have total faith in that, but you're right. If it's based on the budget, and you've done your research, and this is the right amount, and this is a budget meeting, and you don't have a presentation, and you're just gonna give me a piecemeal not me, but the board, a piecemeal of the research you've done, then why bother? Why not just say, this is what the recommended amount, it's conservative, you're comfortable, that's the placeholder, and then we are going to get a presentation at some point about the whole site.
So one of the things I'd like to add there, what I think it's worth a conversation, and again, I think it's a little bit of a lengthier conversation, is we're not gonna give the final presentation, we can certainly lay out what needs to be done to get to that point.
Okay.
So there is a timeline on this, and it does maybe potentially have budget impact, because it would determine when we would be in a position to present this, have it approved or voted on, and then hire the staff, which most likely will not be January 1st. Right now, we've budgeted for the full year. So if you're looking at ways to reduce the budget, that is a potential way, because if we decide that based on the timeline, which I think is more realistic, that we would be looking at no earlier than March.
I mean, which is reflected in the budget.
Right now, it's
It's
reflected.
right.
There's
reflected.
a date.
Yeah, the start
Yeah.
date.
Right now it's a full year.
Okay.
So when we put in, we were being conservative. Realistically though, we can, I think Bill can give a conversation and a talk about what the process would be, so that we fully understand what needs to happen to get the youth fair to happen, so there's a work plan to get to the final presentation. How long we anticipate that would take, so then we can put a more realistic number in for when salaries would start, which would allow you to possibly, use that to offset the increase that we could promote it for this year.
Right, I had done a note on page 16 of 22 saying full year, that if we had a 3/1/2020 start date, it would be reduced by X for these two positions.
Yeah, that's logical, that
Yeah.
reflects reality better, so
Absolutely.
let's
Yeah.
not budget money we don't need to spend.
Yeah, so that's right, so we can have that conversation, or we can
Sounds
zero,
good.
Right.
so anyway, it may be worth coming back to have that conversation if you want, or we,
Now, within the salary schedule, there's not a youth bureau director listed. There is a senior,
I'm sorry.
I made a post-it note, it will be added.
Okay, okay,
Yeah.
all right,
It
all
is,
right.
it is supposed to be
You
in
know
there.
what, it's actually in the verbiage, like.
It's in the yes,
We
it's
just have
there,
to break it
but it
out,
wasn't
yeah,
there,
yeah,
okay.
you know,
Right.
but there is
Well, it's in
a
there,
salary
yeah.
for the director and
And the
then the senior rec director,
Okay.
the senior rec
Okay.
Okay,
leader.
So,
Leader.
for me,
Mhm.
right, now that we know, I've made my comments particularly on the senior rec leader
Mhm.
and modifications and what kind of, if you can find another title with the MSW, salary's fine, good money. But if you at least have MSW, how you can work that out, and for me, now that I understand executive director, senior rec person, whatever that position is, that makes sense for me. I don't know if others need, what kind of presentation people need, but I understand that, and I just need that to be reflected.
And we can adjust the salary
Yeah.
accordingly.
for our purposes now, I think how you explained it, I feel a lot more, more comfortable. The only last thing that I will ask the board is this is a time where city councils, village councils, town councils request their legislators at the county and state level for what is known as member items. Are we submitting any ask for the budget from our legislators and senators and assembly people
Good.
for this project?
I did have a conversation with legislator Borja, at the county on this particular issue, so the answer would be yes. And then there was, other funding coming from, someone in Gaelic, but that's on a DPW project.
Okay, so I guess, so we have the ability as a board to request as a member item from Assemblyman Mugala and Senator Carlucci aid for this project.
Yep.
I guess the question is,
Well, then we'll
do
get it.
we want to at least try to send out one-page letter that this is our
Okay.
intentions?
We can, absolutely.
All right.
Great.
And we'll get that out.
So there's a lot more pages here in the rec budget. I don't wanna go line by line. I don't think that's the best use of our time this afternoon. But are there particular items that people wanna ask Bill about, or Bill, are there particular things that you wanna proactively explain to us before we walk away today?
So Bill, while you're looking, just as a general, so we have one of the lines in here, custodial ranger, what is that mean? Is that for the
Leslie.
park?
Yeah, that's for the parks,
So, but what is, so, how many hours does he work? Where do I see him? How does the community, because that's one thing that I've always been asked, who is the person that should be watching the parks? Right, to tell the truth, I have never seen the ranger in any of the parks that I have visited through the time that I've been sitting in these chairs. I haven't, and again,
But I know that's after.
I mean, we only have
the
one
rec
though, right?
field, so-
Technically, we only have one for all our parks, right?
yeah,
So-
it's a seasonal position.
So that's what I wanted
That's
to
a lot.
May
so-
through September, and he works about 20 to 25 hours a week.
Yeah,
Mainly on weekends and evenings.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
It's-
so that's
it's
what a lot of
times
people-
that, yeah, that there
Yeah.
needs,
Yeah.
that the regular staff isn't likely to be there.
So are we having a special conversation next week, or did we get everything figured out?
No, we are, I guess.
But then I guess we can,
We'll
but
come back to
we
it, right?
has to be a
don't have to do it
budget.
in the context of the
Well,
budget.
or have- yeah.
Manny
Okay.
said he thinks it's
Work session.
a work
Okay.
session, which I
To
agree
To me,
with.
it would be a
And
work
we can go
session.
on.
And Carrie mentioned that.
Cool.
So my
And
other
that'd be a
question
long
is,
process.
in regards to the signage, and I go back to a previous email that I have been following, and I would like to see, because I was not too long ago in Nelson City Park, and I still haven't seen the no smoking sign. So I
In
wanna,
where?
Nelson City Park, the one right across the street from Park School? Is that one in your list? Cause I sent a whole list a
Yeah.
while back, so
We-
is
I'll
that
look, we
in
thought we
there?
had put them up in all of them. We have extra signs, so if they're not, then we'll get them up. I'll go look them.
So if I,
They're difficult.
so again, please make sure the signs that are supposed to be in the parks are placed in the parks. And I would like to receive a timeline. Me personally, I would like to receive a timeline, because this is something I've been asking for almost a year.
If there's no signs in Nelson City Park, they'll be up tomorrow.
Again, I sent an email with all the parks that I visit and the signs that I saw and the locations that I saw. So please review that again. Have your staff located where they're supposed to be.
You sent
Okay,
it to
so, then we're wrapping up on rec in terms of the
Yes.
budget.
So, but we do have, Can
There's
we,
a
can we take a
workshop.
few minutes to look at the capital plan for
Yeah.
rec and
Yeah.
parks?
Yes.
Absolutely.
There's big stuff there. Are we just rolling over this $100,000 a year for the capital project?
So for the capital project, you wanna talk about, or you want me to?
Right, so the thought of that last year was the $100,000 was gonna be put out for an RFQ for a design, thinking about how the community center could be used down the future, and come up with some sort of plan, and then you could start putting some price tags and things. We've had some discussions about that and wondering if that's the right way to go or not. There are some things that needs to occur within the community center, primarily some security issues, the discussion of having a single point of entry to the building, which would help with security issues. So it was thought maybe that we need to take that $100,000 and put that towards those type of things. But we're thinking that if you you get an RFQ, you get a plan, you get a design, best case scenario, you're still 5 years down the road before anything could happen. And we still have some really important issues that need to be taken care of today. So that's one of those thoughts. Did I get that right?
Yes, and I think that it's coming from the security issues, we really can't wait, having multiple points of entry, especially we're gonna be open more hours, I always get concerned about the entries at the pool level. There's things that we can do for a relatively small amount of money, a lot of work can be done in-house in terms of even just, making the single point of entry on the bottom level by the pool. There's a little bit of restructuring that needs to be done near the doorway and the pool room area, not the pool, not swimming pool. So that can be done effectively. There's also some maintenance on the building that really is pressing. So while a comprehensive plan for what the utility of the building can be, right now, if we're looking at plan, you're gonna spend $100,000 to get a plan that's gonna cost you several million, then you have to understand how you're gonna finance it. I think that we're better served fixing the things that are most immediate, and then also layering into that utility usage, really doing analysis. A lot of it we can do on our own. Some of it we might be able to need to contract out, and then look at what the real needs are based on our overall capital needs, because we're also looking at capital improvements at the op center and other buildings. We have security issues, so it's a big job. Once you start unpacking it, it can get very expensive. We need to figure out what we need to prioritize and justify it that way, but security has to be foremost.
I understand what you're saying, and it would be a very large investment, and there are a lot of great things happening there. I understand there are more urgent things that need to be addressed. Ideally, if we were gonna do a full redesign, one of the things I would like to accomplish is that the space would be more inviting and better utilized every hour that it's open. There are communities that have just senior centers, and right now we have some senior programming, and some that's taken care of in town, and some of that I'm not even sure what the village's role is. But the reality is, like, the room with the pool tables and the ping pong table, it gets utilized, I'm sure, with the after-school kids, I know it does, but, people in their 70s don't really wanna go and hang out in that space, so from 9 to 3 o'clock in the afternoon, it's really not used at all, and I'm sure there could be a more versatile, functional, multifunctional use for some of those spaces in our building if we were to do a redesign. So just putting that out there is something I like. The highest and best use of every square foot is the best use of land, especially when it's owned by the whole community. So it's kind of a dark, dank basement that's got a TV in it. So it's not that nicest space. But and that, just using that as an example, the community room itself has some versatility, but probably could be better designed for a more welcoming, inviting use that people would want to be in. But I have gotten specific requests now multiple times for one particular woman who really wants us to address some concerns, is senior programming for, I'm not talking about the senior nutrition program. What is the village role, or what could the village role be in having a conversation with a more robust programming opportunities for our seniors? And is that a responsibility, and if not, how can I direct her? You wanted to tell me something?
So part of, before coming into budget, that's one of the conversations that Karen and I had, like this $100,000. And it might take at that point, 2018, and then, and review it, and put a committee and build on it. Anyway, one of the concepts that come up with this is, and I agree, I wouldn't wanna pay $100,000 to do a study or something like this. Something that came out of that is like, yes, we need someone that comes in and looks at this, and give you a design of what these multifunction rooms could be and create this. We don't need, to me, we do not need a whole construction set of drawings to accomplish the things that we could accomplish. We need something, a design concept where a lot of the stuff we could utilize our staff and work with them. So, to get to your point is, yes, we can have a game room in the afternoon, but in the morning it could be something else, and it could be created by different dividers, different options. And again, we do not need a whole construction set of drawings to accomplish that. We just need a design concept. Sometimes you can comes in and says this is the whole picture, this is the stuff that we need to do. That will not be $100,000.
Or multi-units.
Or multi-million.
Right, exactly,
Correct.
that's
Correct.
overall where
So
we're.
utilizing the $100,000 that we have now, doing the security, hiring someone that comes in and gives us this concept, like this pretty rendering, so to speak, or picture, that we can look at it and accomplish that. Tell the truth, there's a lot of stuff. I remember my previous office, we spent a lot of time in my boss's house, because he was rebuilding his house, and I spent a lot of time working on the construction set of documents. But someone did a rendering, and we put a lot of details in the rendering. Guess what the construction contractor actually utilized? The rendering to build the whole thing, because there was a lot more details that sometimes a paper doesn't give you, doesn't describe that. So to me, hiring someone, getting a concept, utilizing that concept, having multi-purpose rooms, we talked about this before in the past, and even you guys talked about it last year in the budget. I'm okay with doing that stuff now, and having something concrete, actually something that happens now, because we are gonna be opening 7 days a week next year.
Right. So that $100,000 can probably go a long way towards accomplishing both the security and improving the utility and look and feel of the existing space right now.
Cool.
And so as far as senior programming, what's the village's role in that?
So, historically, so when I first came here, there were no senior programs. There were very few, and I was told that the town handles that. Well, I've been learning more about it, that the town really just does the nutritional program, and offers some programming. So we've done some stuff at pickleball. We are doing the trips.
Do we
Yeah,
charge
who
for
does the
pickleball?
Golden Seniors? Who does the, isn't there a
Golden
bonus?
Agers. The
Golden Agers,
Yes,
yeah,
yeah.
so we support the Golden Agers and their
And bocce,
trips.
we used to do bocce.
Um,
Do we still do bocce or no? We don't do bocce anymore?
I think she's,
I
I
think
know she's
I
a
know
member of the
you're-
Golden Agers, which you do know I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Okay, she is,
We all
she like chased me down in the library last week.
Well, she was able to chase you down.
She's very
active
active, she's
senior.
very active, and she wants more programs, she wants
Right.
more robust programs, she wants to go to more places, she wants more, opportunities to
Mhm.
participate. And she wants them all free too, but I just, like, what are all of the,
Yeah, I think it's part of the whole thing with programming. Our goal is to increase programming, and that can certainly be part of that, increasing that. The challenge we have is, to have low cost or no cost programming, and
so has there been a conversation about, have you had conversations with members of the Golden Agers to say, what kind of program would you be interested in
we have not.
seeing?
We have not approached that. We have acted in a way where we support, they come to us with their ideas, and we support that they wanna go to, they wanna go to the casino, they wanna
Yes, they wanna go to the casino.
Yeah.
So then, I think it might go a long way to
Mhm.
making them feel heard if the village, and I guess I mean you,
Mhm.
but I would be happy to attend if, in whatever way you think is appropriate on an upcoming Tuesday, to say, we'd like to be invited to attend and to have some conversations, and maybe we can plan to have, you know,
At
they,
lunch
they,
and
they,
every
they have like a few tables of people, maybe we can go and, you know, you and me and whatever staff can each have like small group discussions and say, what are some of your ideas? And then let's figure out what budget, cause I think, I mean, we probably have some ability to shuffle around some programming expenses if we felt it was appropriate. I don't know if that's a village programming expense that is consistent with our philosophy, because I really don't know. I mean, most of what our programming is, you know, kid activities. I don't know that taking seniors to Atlantic City or to, well, I guess I'm thinking Yonkers probably. Yeah, Atlantic City would be fun, but that's probably not what they're even anticipating. I don't know that that's exactly what village funds should be used for, but we should have a conversation, because it's being
Only if we
requested.
get a cut.
So I would, I'm sorry, I would also, look at private public. We've had legal standing that we can't like get people to pay for, like, we're a government, we can't accept money. There is the Wishney Park, I think we were gonna expand the name, because we have senior homes in this community, who I think would be helpful to subsidize through a public-private, if, you know, some of these programs, and they have a lot of money, regardless of what they say, lots of money, to do this, but I'm not sure we're allowed to accept money from them. So I would also couple that with understanding how they might be able to help, with the program for seniors, which is very different than how we might get help with, youth and children. It's a different ballgame when it comes to seniors, as it stands. I would just recommend that, because your whole thing is capacity management. You have a facility that has peaks and valleys, and even though you wanna fill the valleys, it's not really up to you. You gotta figure out, and then you have to figure out who pays for everything. So, to Victoria's point, so I just think it's worth also looking at that, and I don't know what the library does for seniors, I don't know, like, I thought they did stuff too, I don't know.
I just wanted to add, I like the fact that I guess organically and historically, the seniors just organize themselves and tell you what they want. That's actually something to build off of. But back to Mary Garrity's point, is the way that we can
It's everything.
facilitate just the village going out of their, not out of the way, but asking them in a formal way, what do you think? But I do want to have a discussion at a later time, if possible. I do think that it is part of our responsibility in programming to also do programming for seniors, as we do for Fall Family Fun Day for kids, and as we do for, and somehow we could discuss what that means, or
Yeah, no,
the
I think the
differences, but-
question becomes like, what is that programming? I mean,
Yeah.
you know, senior swim classes, sure, that's obvious, or like, you know, chair aerobics or whatever. But the question becomes like, you know, trips to the casino.
Oh, yeah.
How does that fit
Is
into
it appropriate?
programming?
Yeah.
I don't know if we have a guiding policy for that. Okay, thank you for giving us,
Thank you.
we're not gonna figure everything out today, it's just that I don't know if that's it's certainly not a capital project. Where are we with,
I do have a question, I guess, for Tom. Some of the stuff in here, like going to parks and community center portion that comes in, it says general fund surplus 2019, so that's not really a capital project, it's just
Well,
coming out of.
No, well, it is a capital these are capital projects, but it's recommended that they be funded by general fund monies rather than issuing
Yeah,
debt.
that's correct, so that's what,
where are we with the basketball courts? I haven't looked at any.
So basketball courts, we had, we're gonna work with this company called Gordian. They were gonna do pre-bid, all the work. They came out, they spec'd the courts out, they looked at the courts, they gave us some prices, and as we were negotiating the prices, the company's not getting back to us. Subsequently, what happened is that the subcontractor they had not been performing, so they were unable to go through with providing us the service. So late in the game, as far as putting the bid out and getting it together, we do have a plan. Karen's helped in talking with Paul about getting together in the spring and getting the courts done. We also ran into some issues with Nelson Park and Stone Park that we didn't know about, some drainage issues. So we could certainly go in, lay the asphalt down, and do the courts, but we're gonna have some real issues where it's gonna, the acrylic is gonna come up. in a few years. We wanna do it right if we're gonna do it. So we have to get some drainage issues, which is gonna increase the cost a bit at Nelson Park, basketball courts and Stoner Park. So Paul's gonna help with that, and we're gonna get the asphalt done as soon as we can when the season opens up in the spring. The acrylic, that, we can put that out to bid, that's an easy, we have the specs for that. The time of year that they do that is May, June, because it has to be temperature wise, so that's our plan going forward. We were hoping to, with using Gordian, that it would be a turnkey type of, project, but it did not pan out because of the relationship they had with the subcontractor.
When did you find out about this?
Certainly of discussing, and, I think we got a full thought on this, recreation department conversation.
Well, we can talk about capital as a whole, so we do have, we usually do.
We do capital review, yeah, I know, but like, we're gonna need Bill to be your
Yeah.
part of it.
Yeah, that's why I'm thinking that we probably, should have allocated more time for this particular discussion, given how much have going on.
Yeah.
But I do think that maybe we should, in the interest of everybody else we've scheduled today, ask Bill to come back and talk about this, because it is, there's quite some exciting opportunities, and Bill's done a lot of work and research into them, so to hear them and consider them fully, I think we need more time.
Okay, so then, and by the way, it doesn't say, even though I keep asking for it to be included in every single time we talk about it, we've all agreed that if we go over, it'll be November 19th from 6 to 9 p.m. And here it just says discussion further dates for review.
That's just on.
Okay.
It was in.
I know, it was updated online.
It was
I know, I
updated
know.
online,
Okay,
so yes.
It's November 19th, just put it in your calendar, and if you get to cancel it, super
so,
awesome, considering we're an hour and a half behind right now, plan on being here.
So November 19th, 6 to 9. But I'll
But
follow up with you on
we
the
don't have to
time.
wait until then to have Bill come in, if he can come in on the 14th, theoretically, maybe we'll just,
Yeah,
Stay
we'll,
later,
we'll,
14th to
we'll,
get it done.
yeah, we're also doing the 14th.
because the
From
14th
12.
is capital projects and fees.
Oh, the
schedule, so if
14th,
that
so
works-
maybe
if that
on the
works,
14th.
then it's
And
great.
that's also 6 to 9, right?
Except for today, everything is.
Is 6 to 9, right? So
Yes.
6 a.m.,
Yes.
okay. All right.
Okay, can we take a quick break, and then we come back, and Joe's been waiting a while, and Stuart hasn't been able to come down yet.
Stuart would like to go